intend to bring a lateral entry system into civil services. Now, should government allow it or not? The debate is that should government allow the lateral entry into the civil services? This is a recent issue which Prime Minister's office had asked the Department of Personnel and Training, which handles the issues related to civil services, to put up a proposal for lateral entry into the civil services, which happens to be the prestigious career option for the millions of Indians. Now, traditionally, in order to get into the civil services, we all know, since we are preparing for this particular exam, you know that there are 3 stages which you have to clear, like preliminary, mains, and interview. But 1/3 of the vacancies in the Indian services, Indian civil services, are also filled by the promotion of the eligible candidates who are, working in the different state services. That is, they are promoted through cadres. They're promoted through the feeding cadre system, and they are basically promoted since they are working for their own state civil services. They can be promoted from the state civil services into the Indian administrative service, right? So there is this system, that is 1/3 of the vacancies shall be filled by the promotion of the eligible candidates. Now, lateral entry into the civil service means bypassing these 2 options. Well, what are these 2 options? First one is that a person who basically qualifies the competitive exam, that is, he goes through the rigorous preparation and then clears prelims, mains, and then qualifies the interview and gets into the civil services. So first, you by introducing lateral civil service system, you are bypassing this particular system. That is, you are bypassing the these 3 stages. And apart from this, the second one, which is through promotion, so you are bypassing both these measures, that is promotion as well as sitting in the competitive examinations. So now the proposal is for selecting the private individuals for appointment into the ranks like deputy secretary or director and joint secretary. Now, why do you feel, or why the government feels that Indian bureaucracy needs a rejuvenation? The World Bank has ranked India at 130 in the ease of doing business index, which is pretty low as compared to the other countries, even in the because India touts itself to be the world's fastest growing economy, but yet as far as ease of doing business is concerned in India, it ranks at the 130th, which means that there is some rot in the system which needs to be settled, or which needs to be taken care of, which needs to be sorted out. So India ranks 76 in the corruption perception index, which is brought by the Transparency International. It also mentions that India has highest incidence of the bribery in the Asia Pacific, which naturally tells about the transparency process or transparency or that is there within the system. The Political and Economic Consultancy report rated Indian bureaucracy as the slowest among the 12 Asian counterparts. So such indices and the reports are a manifestation of retrograde bureaucracy of the India and its unprogressive performance, urging immediate rejuvenation. So it is not only the ease of doing business, but certain other factors have also contributed. Or certain other factors are responsible for the stagnation of the bureaucracy. There is the political pressures, policy paralysis is there, as a result of which the Indian bureaucracy, which was once touted as being the steel frame of the government, has now become a rubber frame, right? So it is for this reason that Indian bureaucracy needs rejuvenation, right? World Bank, as I said, ranks India at 130th as far as ease of doing business is concerned. Or even if you look at the other indexes which are issued by the World Economic Forum, India ranks among us the lowest ranked countries. So it is very important that in order to rejuvenate the bureaucracy, you need to bring some fresh blood from some fresh ideas which are not orthodox, which are not orthodox but unorthodox, or which are from the private sector itself, so as to bring about some upheaval as far as the and set up a competition sort of a thing between the private sector as well as the government sector, people who are working within the government and people who are working in the private sector. Now, there has been an analysis of the recent steps for the lateral entry into the civil services. Several steps have been taken by the current government to enhance the qualitative value of the civil servants in India. One among them is instruction which is issued by the PMO to the Department of Personnel Training to prepare a memorandum for induction of the outsiders into the middle rung of the ministries that deal with the economy and infrastructure. So they have particularly chosen the section economy and infrastructure, right? Not law and order or any other thing. Particularly, they have chosen economy and infrastructure. This announcement has already, caused a sort of an upheaval of speculations in both political as well as administrative circles in the country, as has been rightly pointed out by the Shashi Tharoor in, question hour of the Lok Sabha. There are underlying vacancies in different departments of the multiple ministries, and also inefficiencies which are existing as far as the system of complacent bureaucracy is concerned. So the government has taken a leapfrogging measure to arrive at a political consensus for reforming the bureaucracy. According to some sources, the shortlisting of the private sector executives or social workers was through a matrix of experience and qualification without taking into account their current salary. So even if somebody is taking a salary which is worth 7 or 8 figures or 9 figures or 10 figures, they will not take this thing into consideration, but they will take into consideration the experience as well as qualification. So the final selection committee would be headed by the cabinet secretary, and as per preliminary estimates, 40 such individuals, such as entrepreneurs, academicians, social workers, would be selected for the middle management level. Notably, there would not be such an entry in the Ministry of Home, Defense, Personnel and Corporate Affairs. So these particular sections, that is Ministry of Home, Defense, Personnel and Corporate Affairs, have been left out of the this later entry system. Now, why is there a need for lateral entry into civil services? The assurance of a secure career path has been held to be the career-based system's biggest lacuna, because once you feel that you cannot be removed, for even if you are a dead rot, even if you are dead wood, you will not be removed from the service. Even if you are doing nothing, you will not be removed from the service. So this basically is, it's in itself a biggest lacuna as far as the career-based system is concerned. Now this weakness has been compounded by heavy reliance on the seniority, and then there is no inadequate there is an inadequate annual reporting system. Apart from that, there are ACRs which are filled with lacunas, and there are frequent transfers. So it has discouraged initiative by reducing the competition in the higher echelons of the government. Now, allegedly, the costly monopolistic hold of the careers, civil services on senior management position, they will breed complacency. They will inhibit the innovative thinking and prevent or the inflow of new ideas from the outside government. Plus, there is a huge shortfall in the number of recruits, such as 20% shortage of IAS officer in the 24 state cadres of the India. The Baswan committee, which was appointed to recommend the reforms in the examination of the civil services, which is in fact the report of which has not been tabled before the government, or it has not been made public, for that matter of fact. So it had pointed out that there is a huge deficit of the officers. The government has in March 2017 informed that there is a shortage of over 1,400 IAS and 900 IPS officers in the country. So while the total strength should be 6,396 IAS officers, there are only 4,926 officers in the country. But there is an unwillingness among officers of the state to undertake the center deputation. Now, what are the counter? Because there will be counter arguments. If there are arguments in favor of lateral entry into civil service, there are certainly counter arguments over the lateral entry into the civil services. The first one basically being the fact that, so the firstly is that the all India services, they basically provide a sort of a unique link between the cutting edge at one end, right, between the cutting edge at the field level, and apart from that, they provide a kind of an integration between the top policy making positions, as has been mentioned in the first Administrative Reforms Commission as well as the Sarkaria Commission on the center-state relations. The bridge between the policy making and implementation, while it is crucial to all systems has been of strategic significance in the Indian context, right? So this has been of sort of a strategic significance as far as India is concerned. Why? Because of the regional and the territorial diversity that India has got. It is for this particular reason that policy making and policy implementation becomes a crucial part, a crucial crucial aspect of the Indian governance system. And exposure and sensitivity of the complex country's socio-political milieu and the needs of the common man, which are widespread, are widespread field, which is a widespread field and provides an experience to these services, may not be available in case of the lateral entry into the civil services. Further, the lateral entry only at the top policy making positions may have little impact on the field level implementation, because it is the field level implementation where the real action takes place. So by having people hired at the top level and not at the at the lower level would do no good for the for the betterment of the people. Further, the lack of sufficient and suitable talent in the private sector is another uh, is another is another argument which is against the lateral entry into the civil services. Further, the operational difficulties of fresh recruitment for senior executive services again can be a big hurdle as far as the lateral entry into the civil service is concerned, and the possible adverse impacts of such recruitment on the constitutional mandate for affirmative action, such as creation of the new positions, can also create issues. Further, an issue of conflict of interest when it comes to the entrance from the private sector, because it's quite obvious that those who are selected through competitive exams, right, through UPSC, and those who are handpicked by the government and put into made them as seniors, they will certainly question their competence, because they have cleared a rigorous examination which is considered to be the second toughest examination in the world, and have come into the service, while as the other fellows have just walked into the service, simply cakewalked into the service. So they will ultimately question their competence, question their abilities. The potential loss of the internal talent as well as likelihood of the atrophy of the existing career-based services will take place, because once you are bringing people from the outside and make them compete against those who are internally recruited, it would create sort of a, because then people from outside will be competing, competing with those who are already into the system. Although this particular concept is quite quite appreciable, but the fact that the Indian sort of mentality, or the kind of work environment we have in India, where politics thrives day in and day out, so there can be issues related to this particular thing, that whether by bringing people from the lateral entry or through lateral entry, what would and it would certainly dent, or it would have it would sort of demotivate the employees who are working, or it would demotivate the civil, it will demotivate the bureaucrats who are already working on their tasks and who are doing good jobs. Further, what is the conclusion? We know that the recruitment to the lateral entry is needed, but it should be done specifically in a mission mode manner. Like let's take example of the Aadhaar project, right? For Aadhaar project, the government had hired Nandan Nilekani, right? Nandan Nilekani को hire किया था. Nandan Nilekani was at that time with the Infosys. He was CEO of Infosys at that time. तो उन्होंने मतलब Nandan Nilekani को लिया और project base पे they made him the head of the project, and it worked wonderfully well. So this has to be done. Not in the government should not try and bring the executives, corporate executives, directly to head the